youth is what we're talking about today. And I'm going to try and take a hands-off role here. In a minute, I'm going to turn it over to Lily Larson. Let me tell you about Lily, then I'm going to show you a couple of slides. And actually, no, let me show you the slides first, actually. So I've found in my community work that there's nothing that brings people together around an issue like anger. So if, for example, you hear that there's going to be a parking lot put over a park, everybody comes out. These are the people that you've been begging to get involved for so long, and suddenly they're there, sometimes too late. Thomas, can you give me co-hosts so I can share my screen? So during
you should work now.
Okay, great. So during our process, our secret process, it's not secret at all for planning the Congress, involves doing some surveys. So we did this planning survey, and hopefully you can see it on your screen. And this circulated for a while. I know the department sent it out in their newsletters. And we got 114 or so responses from all sorts of neighborhood councils. And there's a couple of things about age in here that I just want to draw everyone's attention to. I won't make the conclusions. I'll let you do that. But in the what is your age question, we didn't get anybody who was 19 or younger. Okay, maybe not surprising. This started before most of the elections were done this year. But as you can see, it skewed a little bit older, right? 2/3 were 55 or older. And that's great that we've got people who've been involved in the neighborhood council system for so long. So then we asked how long they'd been involved. Quite a chunk had been in the NC system for more than 5 years. And we asked how many Congresses they'd attended, et cetera, what was important to them. And then we asked about specific issues. Now, I had it wrong in my memory. I thought that there was this resounding call for more youth content. I was wrong. Maybe we shouldn't even be having this session, right? Because people want to talk about homelessness, but animals and wildlife got 11, got 9.6%. Youth had three people wanted to talk about youth and education. So I don't know, does that get a reaction out of any of our panelists? Well, let's let Lily run with that. But I think maybe we can adjust our priorities a little bit in the next year or so, right? So Lily Larson, let's tell you about her. So she's been attending NC meetings since she was a kid. As a teen, 2017 in parentheses. She was only a teen for 1 year, interestingly, but she noticed a lack of youth representation. She advocated for the youth rep seat, and in 2020 created the first public art committee on the Mid-City Neighborhood Council, also known as MINC. Now, she is a previous NC Congress speaker, and she currently studies government at American University in Washington, D.C. So Lily Larson, it is all yours.
Alrighty, thank you for that enthusiastic introduction, Conrad. Hi everyone, I'm Lily. I'm born and raised in Mid-City, LA, and I've been involved in the neighborhood council system for quite some time, starting off with program Civic Youth, the Mayor's Youth Council, and getting involved in all sorts of avenues at City Hall. I wanted to first start us off with some facts, which Conrad already presented some, that was pretty crazy. Only 1/3 of neighborhood councils have a youth representative seat, and that seat doesn't even have to be filled. It's just the amount of neighborhood councils that have that board seat, and because each neighborhood council has a different set of bylaws, that seat has to be presented and elected upon to even be on the council. So that already is a loophole in trying to get young people involved in city government, because majority of young people don't even know about neighborhood councils as it is. So I'm glad that to be introducing you guys to some awesome youth activists today. To really talk about this subject and try to get as many young people involved as possible, because not only are we the future, we are also the now. So it's important. Alrighty, so Josh, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us about what you do with LA Youth Alliance?
Sure. Well, hi, my name is Josh Nadell. I am a board member at the Palms Neighborhood Council. I'm also the co-chair of Budget Tribunes, but I'm here today because I am the chair of the Adult Advisory Board on the LA Youth Alliance. The LA Youth Alliance, well, I'll tell you a bit about the Tribunes part and it'll make sense. So for Tribunes earlier this year, I was tutoring some teens because I've been a tutor on the side for like 4 or 5 years. And I tutor SAT and I get, like 300-400 extra points for all my kids. So like they're all super excited. But then they asked me, Josh, what more can we do to try to get into college? And I was like, well, I'm the chair of this budget alliance. Why don't you guys come join? You could be board members and, that'd be great. So they came and they joined, and these 4 teens actually helped us put on a big event in May. Had like 2 council members, the controller, the deputy mayor. We went really well. And they even interviewed Councilman Koretz as the final speaker. And they were so excited. They were like, well, what more can we do? I was like, well, why don't you guys start a youth alliance? So the very next month, we started the LA Youth Alliance, and that was June of this year. And we have 30 members already, and they are just super motivated teens. And we have a lot of activities planned. We've already secured the forum for next year to do a Black History Month event. We have 5 tentative speakers, including 3 council members, a supervisor, so Supervisor Mitchell, Congresswoman Bass. We've secured the Galen Center at USC in March for doing a Women's History Month event with tentatively, again, because we still have to wait for the Pac-12 sporting dates to get our final date, but Councilwomen Nuri Martinez, Monica Rodriguez, and then Supervisor Mitchell and Congresswoman Bass expressed interest in that event too. We're also going to do a set a Guinness World Record in April for Earth Day for largest city and county cleanup. And we're partnering with all the council districts and supervisor districts and probably all the alliances in here and everybody under the sun, because our goal is to literally get 1 million people cleaning up Los Angeles. And that we feel that's a reasonable goal because we're only trying to get 10% of the county to do it. But hey, why not? And I think it would be a lot of fun. In May, we're planning a college admission expert panel, and we're going to be bringing in admission officers from all over the country to give basically a symposium for our middle school and high school students, explaining to them what courses they should take, how they should plan out their time in high school to maximize their chances, whatever sorts of things, are relevant for that. We could have as many panels as we want because we're going to be bringing a lot of people, and we're going to give them a chance to set up booths. And then the last event we got planned out is in June. We want to do an adult skills convention where we bring in nonprofit groups to show youth and maybe adults too, stuff like budgeting, how to start a business, how to file your taxes, but also things like knitting, ironing, how to cook food for yourself, because all those skills really matter as you become an adult. I've also done a lot of work on homelessness. And one of the things that we came to realize about homelessness has a lot to do with the youth, because it turns out the foster system, the juvenile probation system, the kids in those groups, they tend to fall off the county and city radar at age 18 right now. And it becomes a conveyor belt for homelessness. So one of the things we want to do is we're matching the new youth development department of the city. That department just started, I think, in August, about going to age 25. So we're going to give all of these youth a chance to have much more touch points with the city and county for that. And we're also trying to set up monthly museum and college university events for these kids to go learn and experience these things, because there are a lot of kids from around Los Angeles who've never experienced our museums or gone to the universities and colleges, even know about what sorts of experiences are out there that they could be growing from. And our goal is just to try to do our best to partner up with people and get stuff done. And in the past week, we've actually met with LAUSD school board president Kelly Gomez's office. They agreed to partner up with us and ask for some videos and promotional materials to show the other school board members and to send to all the schools. They even told us we can't force the schools to want to do this. And we were like, that's great. Thank you for saying that. That's fantastic. If you're pushing it that far, that's great. We also met with the Greater LA Boys and Girls Club this week. They have 130,000 kids in the area as their membership, and they want to have them partner up and join for leadership opportunities. And we want to get kids on neighborhood councils, get them onto committees, have them help for social media and climate change and all these other sorts of things. So I hope I didn't take up too much time, and I look forward to speaking with y'all about all these topics over the next hour and hearing what everybody else has to say.
Awesome, thank you. Wow, you guys are doing a lot at the LA Youth Alliance. Like, I like the idea of a 1 million person cleanup sounds like a really like, oh my God, it's a lot of people. But then when you look at LA, we have so many people as it is. Like, it's definitely possible. So thanks for sharing. I'll pass the mic to Robina. Do you? Oh yes, Thomas.
Well, we have a special request for Josh. You were so intriguing that someone in the audience, if you could put your contact information to get in touch with you.
Sure, I will put in a couple different
For the
LA
rest
Youth
of you
Alliance
here, too.
contacts.
I don't think we have chat, Thomas, unless you changed.
I will send it to Thomas right now, and he can put it in from his end.
Okay.
I can send him a
okay.
DM.
Oh, sorry. Let me put that chat. Let me enable chat for you. Thank you, Conrad.
Awesome. Already making connections. Great. So I'll pass the mic to Ravina if you want to introduce yourself and share about your work on the Rampart Neighborhood Council as well as the nonprofit that you work with.
Yeah, thanks, Lily, and thanks, Josh, for your introduction too. It sounds, the work that you're doing sounds really, really cool, and it's very inspiring to hear with all the projects that we have in the city. Hello to everybody. My name is Robina, and from August of last year to August of this year, I was a part of the Rampart Village Neighborhood Council. I see Philip in the room with us, as well as Conrad, of course, who records our meetings. And prior to the RBNC, I was hi Philip, I had founded a community youth leadership program at one of our church communities here in the Rampart Village neighborhood, in Rampart Village, as well as partaking in a nonprofit called Harmony Project that teaches students music education, but also
I used to be in that. I used to be part of that when I was a kid.
Really?
Yeah.
Same, alumni.
The speaker at the previous workshop was, I think, the director, but okay, let's move on. Sorry.
Oh, wow, that's amazing. I know her. But we also have workshops in Harmony Project that assist high school seniors assimilate and prepare for college, particularly from youth from low income and first generation backgrounds. So happy to be here. And just, I guess, as a summary to what I did in the RBNC during my time, it just so happened that during my interview with the RBNC, there was a high school, the CCVHS, Central City Value High School, in our neighborhood that was presenting their senior service learning project. On the same night, I was doing my, interview with the RBNC, and it just so happened that they had presented right before me, and I was so moved by their mission and their purpose in assisting the neighborhood during peak pandemic time, during that time last year, in helping homelessness, dealing with fast fashion, amongst other things. And after I got sworn in, I was voted to be the liaison for those two of our projects. And it was such a rewarding experience. I think it was the highlight, because I have an extensive background with youth empowerment, and it was something that I really, really believed in, as youth are the future, quite literally. And it's really important for us to keep them involved and keep them engaged with the matters of today so they can help us tomorrow. But in that, we had executed a homeless outreach program in which we put together it was really months and months of more so planning and engaging with the youth. I would say for at least 3-4 months of the time, a lot of our discussions were about them, the seniors involved, what their goals are, what they value, how they perceive the issues of homelessness and fast fashion, just to get that perspective from them and to see how we can help them along the way and how we can potentially help educate them and vice versa. It was really more vice versa. We learned a lot about how youth today perceive our social issues and how they believe they can help. And in that, the homeless project, we put together a whole bunch of backpacks with supply, food, basic necessities, food, water, some clothing, and PPE. And I'm so sorry, the term is escaping my mouth, but it's hygiene products, and especially feminine hygiene products, which was a very important part of the supplies that the seniors presented, because a disproportionate amount, half of our population are women, but they don't get the supplies that they need. So that came about then, and I believe that the seniors themselves took a lot out of it. Not only did they give back, but I think it did change a lot of their perspectives about how they can contribute to NCs moving forward and whatnot. And on our other project with fast fashion was donating used clothes to Goodwill and other organizations, and educating the community about fast fashion and how harmful certain materials are to the environment. But that's, sorry, long summary of those two projects.
Well, there's definitely a story behind the fast fashion industry. There's a documentary called The True Cost that really shines a light on it too, and how much stuff is made that we really don't need. So that's awesome. And that was through your neighborhood council that you did that work?
Yes, that was all with the neighborhood council. It was a really long project that required completely virtual meetings. So all of this was planned virtually, and the day of, we were able to finally meet after maybe even half a year, I believe, since the project started. It was great to see everybody, but it was so profound for them, not only being able to meet in a group, but with a purpose, a really important one. And from what I've kept up with a lot of the members, it's really nice to see when, in all of my experience with youth empowerment and youth leadership, that it just takes one experience to really change someone's perspective. And it shows when these youth continue on finding these projects, becoming more involved in the ways that they could. And every single experience I've had with youth empowerment really just shows that. It's really amazing. And I still keep up with some of them, and they ask periodically what they can be involved with. Are there new projects with the NC? So it's really nice to see that they do care. Not only do they care, but they show it, and we were able to, as leaders on our end, we were able to connect with them in a way that they can understand and they can attach something in their identity with.
That's important, because I think and what I've noticed kind of just being in the NC system for a long time and as a young person is that sometimes maybe we think that our voice doesn't really matter that much, or no one's going to listen to it, or they're going to kind of belittle it because we're young, we don't have as much experience in the real world, and stuff like that. And well, I guess, the way that we kind of combat this is just getting more young people involved. And, basically what our panel about today is, outreach and getting youth aware of the NC system. And what a lot of people use today is social media, aka like Instagram or TikTok. Josh, I know that you were making TikToks to reach out to young people and get them politically and civically active.
Not me making the TikToks, the youth on the, yeah, no, not me. Josh, like I'm the one you have to remind to do things, but the youth that I work with in the Alliance, they're incredibly strong at making videos. I would even go so far as to say that the videos that I've seen them make that have gone in front of city commissioners, that have been at different events, are just as good as any of the videos I've seen made by adults in the NC system. And if you didn't know that it was made by a teenager, you wouldn't guess it. And one of the things that I've personally learned from working with these teens is they're amazingly good at doing tasks that they're good at. You know, the one thing that I have to focus on as a leader is making sure that I give them the right task with the right set of directions. Because one of the issues that teens have relative to adults is you don't have that experience yet of figuring out what to do if the plan goes south. How are we going to recover if it all goes terrible? And a lot of the times that can be very frustrating for a person and it can lead to a spiral. And most of us who are adults have experienced this so many times that, you know, at this point now, we kind of have an understanding of what we're going to do if, you know, something goes bad. Like, what if my connection goes out right now? Well, I know exactly how to log back in, who to contact if I have a technical issue, all these kinds of things. And so I need to make sure to give good instructions and guidance. And once I do that, these kids do just as good of a job as an adult, to the point where the chair of our youth alliance, he got appointed by the Bonk commissioners to join the EVG commission. And we didn't even know until after he got appointed. Like he didn't ask, we didn't ask for him. They liked the things that he did and said so much that they wanted him to do it. And I think that all the teens and youth in general will have a greater voice the more people who are out here like yourselves, Lily and Rubina, like showing that people who are 25 and under, because that's how the city defines youth. I mean, when you're 44 like me, I'll definitely define anybody who's 25 and younger, like I'll call them a kid, basically. But it's important for those people to have real positions. And, you know, once some of them have it, it gives the credibility for all the other ones in the room. You know, because it's like, look at Lily, look at Rubina, look at our chair, Sam, and like all these people. And if we build up the bench bigger and bigger and bigger, you know, they'll be more and more formidable. And, you know, one thing that we're trying to think of to do is let's see how many youth we can get involved on the committees in neighborhood councils. The bar is super low for joining a committee. It's basically like, literally, do you have a pulse? Are you willing to do something? If you can do those two things, you can join a committee. And so why not get a bunch of teens on, you know, outreach committees? I did a survey for Budget Tribunes of Instagram accounts by the NC system. I saw that only 79 NCs have Instagrams at all. Of those 79, at least a third, if not closer to half, had 10 or less posts, which I think we could all say are like not really like very robust accounts. And it's really only about like 10, 15 NCs that have like really strong outreach. And, you know, we probably could name off most of them right now, you know, because they're the ones who are always popping up in the system. And, you know, like, I think we all have a good sense of that. We really need to try to get it to be 99 NCs, you know, that have strong outreach operations. And I really think that the youth probably could galvanize those efforts better even than adults, because they were born into that life. They were born into the life of social media. And I would love to hear Lily and Rubina's opinions about that, because for me, like I was saying, I have to make a special effort to think about taking my camera out to like make a video. Like, how am I going to do effects and what would I want? And I'll bet the two of you could tell us that, like, you guys bang videos out all the time on whatever topic you want. They look cool, you get them done fast, but let's hear from you.
Rubina, you want to talk about that on your Instagram stuff you've done?
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Josh. That was a really great transition. I agree with everything you had said, in that with social media, it's extremely important for the younger generations to be involved in that regard, because that is what they were born into, what we were born into, what we learned to adapt with. And with the increasing technologies, or evolving technologies, very fast, rapidly changing technologies. The need is just more in that regard. And I think to add on to what Josh was saying, another point that I think is important is for youth and young adults today is someone they can look to. As Josh was mentioning, our names. Oh, there's Lily, there's Rubina, there's Conrad. I know them and I know what they're doing because I follow what they do and I can see what they do. And that's something that I believe in, and therefore I would like to get involved in that regard, to just specify somebody that they can attach themselves to in a model influential sense. And if I wonder if I can share my screen.
Yeah, let's see the Instagram post. I'm old school. I'm really bad at social media.
Same, but I did try for
Lily,
the.
you are not old enough to be old school yet. I'm sorry.
Yeah, let's
work.
So Rabina, I think you should be able to, you have the authority to do it.
While they're getting that set up, yeah, I've noticed too, when a neighborhood council has a consistent Instagram that's aesthetically pleasing, it tends to get more traction and bring in more attendees to the meeting too, because there's a lot of people that I'll ask them how they found out about this a specific committee meeting, and they said through Instagram. I was like, oh wow, okay, so it really is a tool to bring people in.
Okay, hopefully this works. Let's see. Let me know if you see my screen. It should be an.
We can see it.
Yes. Okay. Perfect. So during my time in the RVNC, it was previously RVNC Robina, but since I had vacated my position, I changed my my username, my handle. But during my time, I think it was peak pandemic, so we weren't able to go out and meet our constituents face to face. And so I figured, all right, if I'm trying to reach more people, how can I do that? And I created my own RBNC account and started sharing. These are stories in Instagram of things that were happening in LA, things that the RBNC was doing on some of the projects we were involved with. And then, I mean, throughout this is my initial video, I had created one to introduce myself, the RVNC, and explaining a little bit more about what it is. I can drop the link in the chat for people's reference, but it was really helpful in just introducing what an NC was and what the purpose was, what my goals were, as well as what I would hope to get from potential followers and people who were viewing. Throughout my posts, these were some of the projects that we were doing with the NC, the backpacks for one, and just think of for example, our homelessness outreach right before our elections with the CCVHS seniors. The visual helped a lot in empowering more youth to not only share this type of media with other people and say, hey, this is what we did, and you can do something similar, or hey, these are our friends and they're doing something, or at least these are some people who are our age. I got a lot of feedback on my Instagram posts and messages about people asking, how do I get involved with the NC? What is that even? And how is that something I can join? During my time, there were at least 3 people who had asked specifically about their NCs, and one of which is now a board member of the East Hollywood Neighborhood Council. Through just social media outreach, someone got curious, and it was just so happened to have been a distant friend of mine, or someone's friends who saw one of my posts and then became curious about their own NC and then started getting involved. And it was extremely, I mean, there aren't too many posts because I also am not that tech savvy with social media, but in just seeing people's reactions, I also saw more youth involvement. Some people who not only were getting involved, but also mimicking the types of posts and saying, oh, they posted on this, maybe I can do something on what I'm doing already. Just getting that and spreading that awareness. And through that, we even created the RBNC Instagram to get more involvement in that community, because there's so many people there right now, and so many businesses, government organizations, and influencers to say, who are using these platforms to their advantage, but really in this regard to the community's advantage as well, because we're sharing these resources.
Mhm. So would both of you say that pretty much social media is like the main key of outreach, like email blasts and canvassing and door-to-door stuff, or setting up a booth at a school isn't the most effective way to reach out to young people? So like what about going to schools? Do you think that would kind of help, or is that a waste of resources, as some would say?
I think it's interesting. I mean, we've gotten some schools asking if we can set up like a youth alliance club at their school, because that's the modality that they think of. You know, they can promote clubs in their school. So, you know, maybe NCs should also consider that angle as well. You know, why not have a Palms Neighborhood Council club at our local schools, you know, in my area? You know, and give those kids a chance to be able to create their own forum that's like in conjunction with that, because you know they can come up with their own conclusions of how they want to try to help the neighborhood council. Their ideas may not necessarily go anywhere, but hey, me an adult, sometimes my ideas don't go anywhere either. You know, it's all about just having that chance and being able to have the same opportunity that everybody else in the room, aka the adults, have for like, I'd like to see this. Can we get some unanimity or majority consensus behind this? And you know, giving them a forum to do that, I think would make a lot of sense. I think that leveraging the schools and doing stuff at schools would matter. And the club angle is good. I know that talking to administrators has been a little bit on the difficult side because they're very, very busy. And, you know, getting a half an hour out of them is tough. And I know over time we'll be able to get them all. But, you know, that's because we're an alliance and we're literally trying to get all of them. If we're talking like an NC, you know, maybe you have an advantage that you have like that singular focus of like, it's just us, we're going after them, we're going after them. But like I said, maybe trying to talk to the different people who handle like the clubs and stuff at the schools may be an easier approach, because those people may have a lot more time.
Yeah, definitely. An idea that I've always had, and I presented it actually to an area representative like a few years ago, was for each main cohort in LA to have a youth representative, say like a West area youth representative, or which we used to have, but their sole purpose would be to get youth representatives for each neighborhood council in that area. So they all band together and they can go to the schools and recruit kids or teens to join. Um, and, you know, just those kind of outreach efforts I think are pretty important, you know. Ravina, you have anything to say on that? Just like schools as outreach, or recreation centers?
I would
What?
say all of the above. Yeah, I agree with both yours and Josh's points. And I think more than really the platform is how we present ourselves as the organization representatives, because we can go, and of course then the second part would be the where youth are and the type of youth we're looking for. I mean, it's one thing to say we just want to recruit everybody. It's another to want to recruit youth who would be leadership oriented, who would want to be involved, because they, I mean, there are platforms that are, I think, somewhat more relevant than others. A recreational center in which a program is being held at that night for like a town hall or something relevant would be a great area for recruiting. schools in which there are like a leadership week or a theme in which we're just focusing on leadership and opportunities in that. Those are really great programs to come in and say, hey, this is what we've been doing, and would you like does this resonate with you to some degree? So I mean, I wouldn't say all of the above, but I think it's more so the manner in which we go about it, the strategies, the relevance, the events we go to, where we go to, and who we approach. That makes a
Definitely,
difference.
definitely. Thomas, you had a question or hand raised?
I did. You know, I was thinking, I don't know, today's my hat I'm wearing is the protection assistant. Make sure chats goes well and, you know, making see Conrad's here watching, make sure I do a good job, you know. But my other hat with the neighborhood empowerment is the director of outreach and communications. And we just had an election here, you know, and then for the 2023 elections coming up, what do we do to engage everybody in non-election years? And youth is a huge component of that. I just want to say thank you for this. You're giving me some ideas. I would love to circle back with, you know, some of you. Josh, your idea of committees, right? I mean, that could be, that's everybody. There's the gold star way, three ways to join neighborhood councils. The gold star is you join the board. Number two, committees. Three, you attend the meetings, right?
Yeah.
Let's get those youth involved. What are the existing alliances that's out there that work with you? So anyways, I just want to chime in on that. There's some good ideas percolating with me here. So thank you for that. So let me put my other hat back on, production assistant. We have 2 more minutes to go. So just thank you so much.
We'll do a speed round of questions. But Josh, yeah, and then Mirdan.
Yeah, I mean, Thomas, we'll definitely make sure to try to work with you. I think that it's really important for us to concentrate on outreach, and we really need to make a strong emphasis, not just on the high school, but on middle schools as well. Because, you know, you can't be a board member until you're 14, but you could certainly contribute, you know, as young as like even 10, you know, like you can have ideas and go do things. I think that kids, especially if we start recruiting like middle school kids now, by the time we have our next election in 2 years, almost all of those kids will be of an eligible age to run. And I think that if we start getting those younger kids now, they'll feel extra special. They're like, oh my God, like me, a middle school kid, like you guys want us to join? Like, I think that you may get a greater attendance, perhaps even than the high school kids, because it'll be more unexpected for them. But what the goal is to move them for 2 years from now. And, you know, like, let's plant some seeds and see what we can get to grow.
Definitely, definitely. Mirdan, you had your hand up if you want to share.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Josh, have you ever worked with the Jewish Federation before on any partnership or any program?
I haven't, but we would be more than happy to partner up, where our goal is to try to work with any organizations that are interested in working with the youth. Like we were saying, to get to 1 million people cleaning up the city, you know, we need to partner up with lots of people, and we're excited to work with anybody who wants to work with youth. Please feel free to send me that email to the email address, and we'll definitely get in touch.
And Trupina, you mentioned about working with youth in a town hall or a roundtable conversation. I would highly recommend that you do a civic engagement. 5 years ago, only one senator in the entire Los Angeles, Henry Stern, did a civic engagement and leadership in Reseda High School. There were 300 students, and 22 of them was recruited to be in the government system at the time. Because that is the way that I think you are going to produce the youth to understand the structure and the mechanism of how government is operating. I personally would like to see Empower LA doing more when it comes about the youth. I still have a problem or trouble reaching out to a representative, whether it's in Empower LA, asking them for sources, or even reaching out to the mayor's office. But I would highly recommend that you do civic engagement, because that is actually the highest parameter to reach out to youth. And then I will reach out to you, Josh, and I will do to you the introduction to APAC and also to the Jewish Federation. because I'm on their board for the youth, and then we can go from there.
I think town halls would be a great idea to have at our schools. And that also shows a way, too, that like someone wants to hear what we have to say and that we have an involvement in the democratic process. So I want to get to these last few questions before we run out of time. And in regards to getting youth involvement in our neighborhood councils, I was wondering what would make most sense in kind of having kind of being a proactive young person on the council? Would it be, or how would stuff get done more if we have a youth representative and an adult as a committee, as a like an ad hoc or subcommittee, or just a youth representative putting forth ideas they have and putting them on the agenda, or having a solely focused youth and education committee? What I did last year was I proposed a public art committee because that was something that I was interested in on my neighborhood council. And a year later, we got like 20 murals in Mid-City. So there's a lot that can happen in these type of committees. But I'm wondering from anyone in the audience as well as our panelists, what do you think the best way would be for projects to get done and the person holding the youth seat to know that they have the ability to effectively get it done without being pushed down at all?
I think that it's really important to explain to people that, hey, you as a youth board member, you have the ability to do whatever you want on your board. Any initiative that you want to come up with for your neighborhood, you have the ability to do as much work as you want and to bring it to your board and to show them. And I always recommend do a bunch of work, make a nice presentation, show people the value of what it is that you're doing. There's a great chance that you're going to find some support from the rest of the board. But everybody needs to, we need to tell them like point blank, like you matter, like your ideas matter, write them out, because people won't know if it's just in your head. You know, and if you need help, like coming up with some Canva stuff or PowerPoint or whatever, reach out to people in the system. They'll be happy to help you. And we need to communicate that, because there's so many. I felt bad for a poor youth board member in my neighborhood council. She was on there for 4 months. She never said a word. I could tell that she just was so scared all the time. And, you know, we really need to try to work to make everybody feel that they matter and that their opinions are just as relevant as anybody else's.
Definitely. That was when I first joined my NC, I always I voted along with what everyone else was voted for and I didn't speak up against anything. And now I'm like, wait a second. No, I can vote for whatever I feel like is representing the community. Not what, if maybe one person on the board wants a bike lane because they want it, not because their constituents want it or whatever anything. It's like, no, you're representing your neighbors. You're representing what people there want. And as a young person, especially when you're kind of vulnerable and joining the board, it's very hard to kind of get perspective on that and be like, wait a second, no, people are here because they want to hear what the issues are among my people. So, good point. Ravina, do you have?
I agree with all of your points. And I think for the NC in particular, it's very important for everybody else on the board, because that's assuming everybody else on the board isn't or would be above the age of youth. Or let's say most of board members. It's important to acknowledge that, and that majority aren't. And so a youth representative on a board might feel a little bit overwhelmed by the sheer number of other people who are older and have in their potential minds more authority, they have more experience, more life experience, etc. But it's important to empower them also to speak up, as Lily was saying, in her own experience, and understanding that everybody has an equal voice. But it's also important to have youth committees, solely youth committees, who band together to put ideas together in a way that everybody would understand, while also incorporating that into a board on a general meeting and to have that participation from a youth community in a board meeting, a general board meeting, because we can't just have one person say, you're gonna, or everybody say, you're gonna be speaking for all of us. We need to, or youth also need that support from other peers to speak up and say that, and say their ideas, say their opinions.
And that's part of what the board members, need to do as well. Are surrounding like the people on the board, as long as they're also uplifting the young people, which I'm glad that there's older participants here today that aren't like teenagers, so you guys are really getting the scoop on what's up over here. We only have 2 minutes left, so if there's any questions that you would want any of our awesome panelists to answer, or hopefully this was of some help in regards to outreach efforts. Yes, Mr. Conrad.
Well, I just wanted to thank Lily for doing such a great job. I didn't know if I was going to have to jump in and, go to my list of questions. It's so nice just to be a participant. This is the only session I feel like I've been an audience member for. But I also wanted to thank Rabina. When you were talking about, putting that image out there of people doing good in their communities, and that giving youth who spend a lot of time on social media individuals that they can identify with and say, that's the kind of person that I want to be. I mean, I get a little choked up. I think that's really powerful. That suddenly makes social media seem a lot more valuable to me, and not just a pastime. It's actually it's important connective tissue that we need to not ignore. So thank you for that. It's not a question, it's just comments. Sorry.
Thank you. Miran, did you have a last hand up?
Yes, just a quick, really a very great moderator, unbelievable.
Oh, thank you so much. Okay, good. I was a little.
But I also want to say to Josh and to Rupina, you both raised a very strong voice. You just reminded me 20, 30 years ago how I got my government job because of being involved in youth. And you both raised a very important that you all have our support. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Josh and Rubina. It's important that us as, well, I guess under 50 stay.
Oh gosh. Okay. Yes. I'm laughing because everybody older than 25 is laughing with me. Let me close this time then.
Okay, hopefully there's some, town halls and schools as youth outreach is probably like a really good, I recommend that to Empower LA.
You gave me some really great ideas, and Josh, you started this one idea, and Rabina, you just reinforced it, is the idea that we can't just, first phase is let's get youth to join neighborhood councils, right? But we can't just stop there. There almost has to be a little more extra step of your voice is just as equal as someone that's much older, like the people here, So then there's that, as we do our core institute, and because there's a turnover, there's half the new neighborhood council board is almost new. So we could build that in to maybe as something to think about.
Yeah.
Okay, with that said, can all the attendees unmute themselves, and let's give our presenters a virtual round of applause for their presentation.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, thank you all so much. You guys are too kind.
Moderate.
This is